What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be finishing up this titanium intake and giving you guys some tips on welding titanium for yourselves. So let's get right into it. This is an intake that I was working on for a buddy. I let him weld some of it, I welded some of it, and it's just been sitting on the shelf for a while. So I figured why not make a video for you guys on how to weld titanium. As I finish this small section, I just have to trim this down and weld this seam here. So I'm gonna do that and give you some tips along the way and some mistakes that we already made while doing this piece so that you can avoid them for yourselves. So the first thing that we need to do here is get this piece all cleaned up. It's been sitting on the shelf for a while, so that's not ideal. It's been collecting dust. Stuff could get in this seam and make it not a perfect weld, but we're gonna do our best to clean it up. I gotta take this coloring off. This is oxidation, that's how the color is put into it. So that needs to come off because that will contaminate the weld. All the way around this ring on this side, the color needs to come off. I'm gonna try first to get the color off with just a hand wire brush that I have dedicated for titanium. If that doesn't work, we may have to go to Scotch-Brite, but hopefully it doesn't come to that because the Scotch-Brite can contaminate it even further if it's not done properly. So let's see what we can do with the color. All right, so we got it off for the most part. I haven't done titanium in a while, so I will admit I did forget that when you strike the arc, it kind of just gets rid of that color. But since we burned this on and it wasn't anodized, I'm not sure if it would do that as well. We added this color to the tube after welding it with a flame. I will admit I don't really like how it turned out. It looked nicer in raw titanium. I think the raw, once you heat it, doesn't look as nice as the polished. Throw a picture in here of how it looked before we put the heat to it, and you guys can let me know down in the comments if you think it was better before we heated it or if it looks good now. I like it previously, but we'll see what you guys say. Now that we've got most of our color cleaned off, we have some preventative maintenance to do before we start purging and welding this thing. Very important, and will save you a lot of headache. Now, before we start purging and welding this thing, let me tell you about this maintenance that we're gonna do. What we've got here is a 4-inch aluminum purge plug and a 4-inch silicone purge plug from TIG Aesthetics. It would be awesome to use both of these on both ends. They're a lot simpler, a lot less hassle, but it can't go this close to the weld joint or else we will burn it. And if we put our aluminum plug in here, it would probably fall out as the pipe heats up and mess up our purge. So what I'm gonna do is temporarily tack this pie cut on here to give us a little extra distance from the weld, and then we can use this silicone plug. It shouldn't get burned at that distance, but if it does, we can switch over to the aluminum one, and that extra distance will also make it less likely that the aluminum plug will fall out from the pipe expanding. What I'm gonna do is start getting set up for our purge, and I will give you guys some more tips on purging because on this piece we had some trouble with that. You can see it does not look very nice in here. Now the reason for that is that titanium loves gas. It needs a lot of it to stay clean and shiny, and I have not done a lot of 4-inch tubing, especially not 4-inch titanium. So when I did this first half, I was running the same gas flow that I run on 3-inch stainless and 3-inch titanium, which is about 10 CFH. That's what happened. So when we went to this other side, you can see it got a little bit better. At the beginning, we checked it again and then turned it up again, and it got a lot better. I believe I was running 30 CFH. So I'm gonna start out there on this joint so that it is all nice and clean. This is normally not something I would be okay with, but like I said, it's for a buddy, and it's just an intake. It's not an exhaust. It's not going to be getting super hot. It's not going to be getting a lot of vibration through it. So it should be just fine. It shouldn't put anything into the engine that is going to hurt it. Make sure that if you guys are going to titanium, and especially large diameter tubing, you turn your gas flow up a little bit, because to fill that volume completely and to keep it full as gas travels through it, you need a bit more gas going in, and that will keep you from getting a poor purge like I did. Let's see if we can get this weld to be much better than the previous ones. Big shout out to my favorite Lamborghini Turbo Kit fabricating buddy, Eddie from Autopilot Exotics, for sending me these gloves as a gift. I really appreciate his support, and you guys will definitely be seeing him on the channel at some point, I hope. But as for what we're doing here, you can see we're tacking that piece of pie cut on, making sure that it's nice tight gap. We've got a small cup on to save gas, and we're just fuse tacking, very, very light tacks. We don't want to penetrate and get oxide on the inside. And we're going to go all the way around here and just get it all even and tacked. We're not going to be welding this joint, but you want to get it as fit correctly as a welded joint so that you're not leaking purge out of it and screwing up the joints that you are welding. So we'll go ahead and run all the way around here, and then we will start doing our purge. A lot of times you will have some tubing or pie cuts that are out of round. A vise is a super helpful tool to squeeze that out of roundness in, get your edges lined up, and tack it so that you have no gaps and no high-low. That will be super important to your quality of weld and your consistency, because that very slight bit of high-low will seriously affect your welding. It may not seem like a lot, but when you got to do it, you'll see what I mean. So definitely get your fit as perfect as possible. Now we'll finish tacking this up and begin our purge. First, I'm going to clean up these purge plugs. They have been sitting in my purge plug box for a while because I don't do a lot of 4-inch. You want to keep everything in your area as clean as possible, because anything you touch and then that's dirty and then you touch your pipe, you're going to get your material dirty. And especially with titanium, but just as much so with stainless, you want everything very clean, because if it is not, it will affect your welds and you will not have the control over the puddle that you need when you hit contamination. And if it's really bad, your weld will just look horrible. So keep your area clean, keep your tools clean, and it will help you tremendously to get a good product. Coming up here in just a minute, you will see me set up for our purge, and what we're going to do is make sure that our inlet is at the lowest point and our outlet is at the highest point. This allows all of the oxygen to rise to the top and come out and not trap any oxygen in the part. If you trap oxygen, you will get bad spots in your purge, like the inside that you saw on the part previously. I am chucking the part up in my vise. I find that that is the best way to position parts, and you want to make sure that you have some soft jaws or aluminum foil like I have on your vise so that you don't mar up the part. It is super nice to have the part on a vise. You can swivel it and put it in any position you need to get the best weld. Now I'm going to go set my gas at 25 CFH You can be too low, you can also be too high. So I'm gonna go right in the middle of what I remember using, around 25. And we're gonna give it about a minute or maybe 2 minutes to just fill the part and get full of gas and flow through, and then we can begin welding. All right, so now that our purge has gone for a couple of minutes and it is full, we can now move the part around as we need to get it positioned for welding, and we shouldn't get any oxygen in the part that will affect the purge. As long as all of our gaps are tight, have our plugs properly installed and not leaking, as well as our hose. You can use a high heat tape called Kapton tape to tape up joints that are not welded. This one's probably a little too close, but if say all these were unwelded, we could tape them up so we're not leaking purge. I will link that Kapton tape in the description below if you guys want to pick some up. It's a huge help for taping purge plugs in and taping unwelded joints. We have also got our filler rod here. I believe this is 039 filler rod from Tycon Industries, and we have wiped it down. You can see just the amount of dirt that comes off of the filler. It's very important to clean your filler. I'm gonna set you guys up and try to get some arc shots here. I might skip the first weld or two in the video as I get the arc shots perfected so that you can see what I'm doing. I have switched over from my number 7 cup for tacking to the number 24 monster cup. I will link that down in the description. We are at 40 CFH on the torch, 25 on the purge, and we are running our first welds here. I am definitely a bit out of practice, and the fact that this part was sitting on a shelf collecting dust is, I believe, affecting my welds. I'm not nearly as consistent or neat as I have been on titanium. You can see that when I'm done with these welds. I will compare it to the welds that I did on this part when it was fresh, and you'll be able to tell that I'm either out of practice or this part is very dirty in a way that I could not clean up. That's just a little disclaimer, and it will also show you the effect that dirty parts have on weld quality. You will lose control over the puddle as you're welding, and that is why I always use fresh materials whenever I can. In this case, I should have just finished this part when I was originally working on it, not let it sit on a shelf, but life got in the way, and I figured, why not do it today? It'll be a good representation for you guys why you should be anal about the cleanliness of your parts. You can see here I am experimenting with foot pedal input and travel speed to try to gain more control over the puddle, but it's really not working out for me very well, as this part is definitely dirty and there's nothing you can do about it. Welding dirty material, no matter what you do, trying to control your heat, the puddle is going to do whatever the contaminant is making it do. Just as with stainless, you want to strike up on your part and wait for that puddle to get up to size, which will also tell you that you have penetrated completely, or hopefully have penetrated completely, and then you can start moving forward and dabbing, making sure that you're being consistent with the distance that you move between each dab and the amount of filler that you add on each dab. As many things, this skill is largely dependent on you paying attention to what is happening in front of you. Watching the puddle is the number one way to tell what you're doing wrong or what you need to change to get the result you're after. If your puddle is too wide, you're either moving too slow or you have too much amperage. If your puddle is too skinny, you're either moving too fast or don't have enough amperage. If your puddle is lumpy, you may be too cold or adding too much filler. If it is flat or undercut, you may be too hot and not adding enough filler. If your weld at the end is gray or discolored, you have a gas flow issue, and so paying attention to these things and paying attention to what you are doing to influence that result is the key to diagnosing your problems and getting better at any skill, especially this one. Attention to detail is incredibly important. The human eye is attracted to two things mainly, which is shiny things and light and patterns. To get a good looking weld that is appealing to the eye, the pattern is very important. To get a good pattern, the two factors of the weld are the width being consistent and the dab spacing between every time you add a dab of filler rod. That being consistent is your other factor of pattern. The two main things to pay attention to as you weld is that your puddle is growing to the correct size every time before you dab, so that your toes or the edges of your welds are nice and even, and also ensuring that you travel the same distance between each dab of the filler rod so that you have that nice pattern and nice stacked dime look of a nice weld. You will see here that I overlap the first weld with my final weld of this ring, and I notice that there is a slight fisheye, so I go back and touch that up so as to avoid cracking down the line. And now we can see that we got great coverage on the outside of our part. The bead width and dab spacing, however, was not very good due to the contamination that I spoke about. Some of the beads were better than others because the contamination is usually not consistent throughout the part. And as we come around to the inside of the part, we can see that our gas coverage was exceptional, very silver, very nice. The only problem is that, again, the contamination hit us hard and affected our ability to penetrate, especially where the tacks were. Yet another reason to keep your parts very, very clean. It will bite you in the ass in more ways than one. Now that we're finished welding, I can chop this extra piece off and let my buddy know that I finally got around to welding up his intake. That's going to be all for this video. I hope this helped you guys become more comfortable with attempting to weld titanium, or if you've already done it, I hope that this improves your skills. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to check out this playlist. I've got a ton of good welding videos, and there may be some information that you didn't know that can make your welds 10 times better. So make sure to check it out, and I will see you guys in the next video.